All right. Movable studios.
Movable studio. We're in the Mike Tarrolly penthouse above the former hub. It's May 10th.
For sale.
It's for sale. Beautiful views of Lookout Mountain, Signal Mountain, you name it. It's for sale. It is May 10th, 2022. Welcome aboard, everybody. This is the Crushing Iron podcast. This is episode 580.
No.
Yes, it is.
Nah, just kidding.
580. We needed a solid weekend and a full Monday to digest the weekend itself. Hope you had a wonderful weekend and a great start to the week. It's first time tuning in. Welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Your time is valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We'll do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We will do race recaps like today. We will do race previews like next week for Chat 70.3. For the most part...
Is that next week?
It's next week. Yeah, we won't go there today. For the most part, Mike and I as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through, both as athletes, humans, and coaches. We'll also talk a lot about what our athletes are going through. We're with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes looking to complete their first sprint all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to the Ironman World Championships and everyone in between, and all over the globe, from 90% probably in the U.S., but we do work with a lot of international athletes. So if you're interested in us and you're across the pond, hit us up, mate. But we'll also go into our Facebook group, Crushing Iron Group, if you want to be a part of that conversation. Answer one simple question, we'll let you right in. It really is a great community, a lot of great feedback, great topics, answers, questions, and just really an all-around solid group of people. Very experienced. Again,
which
every
is rare
level.
These days,
it really is. It really is. And we have I've got a hook and I pull the hook quick if I see any banter or comments I don't appreciate.
We don't have time for that in this world.
I don't even have 3 strikes. You don't even know you got a strike until you go back to like pop in to the Facebook group and you're like, banned. Yeah. I don't even give you a warning. You're gone. We don't have time for that. It's a supportive community. And we need more of that. So we'll go in there and kind of let them drive the discussion sometimes, some Q&As. That's it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Man, it was quite a weekend.
It was. Tell you that. Did you notice my intro change? I didn't say Kona. I said all the way up through the Ironman World Championships. I'm going to start disassociating.
World Championship
because I see a change.
Wannabes.
Yeah, I see a change on the horizon. But yeah,
he feels it.
It was a absolutely loaded weekend, and frankly, the next 2 casts will be dedicated strictly to everything Ironman World Championships in St. George that happened on Saturday. The pro race, the age group race, the venue. We're gonna blaze through this in a 2-parter. We'll post one today and the other one Thursday. But we'll cover the race coverage and the conditions. We will definitely talk about the winners. We'll talk about Christian Blumenfeld, his amazing performance, and also the the friendly age groupers that wanted to weigh in literally on his body type and everything he was doing. We'll talk about the pros that were missing up to the last minute, and we did our pre-race podcast, and by the time the pros hit the wall, they were down 2 of the people that I had on the podium. Eden and Brownlee, gone day before. We'll also talk about Daniela Reef, who, if you thought she was gone, you'd be wrong, because she was back with a vengeance and absolutely stomped on everyone. And it was awesome watching her finish and throw up the big number 5 world titles. And so anyone who thought she was gone, you were put on notice. We'll also talk about everyone's favorite topic, lessons from Lionel. We'll have a subject and his impact in the race and his growth. We'll talk about what we can expect at Kona from the pros. We'll also talk about the effect on the age groupers. That started late. The age group race itself, people walking bikes up the hill, and if that really matters. And then the age groupers, who showed up, why they showed up, and the impact it'll have on the future of the Ironman World Championships from the age group race and all the professionals, and then where I see the World Championships from here on out. So we don't normally have an outline. This might be the 3rd time ever, but we figured, you know what? Today is a good time, because it was seriously Amazing to watch. The race itself, you even tuned in because I got a few comments from you, and I'm not used to getting those. I'm used to like catching you up on a Monday, but I know you had some athletes racing, so you're a little more invested. But I was happy to see you enjoying a little bit of the coverage on Saturday.
Yeah, I was definitely tracking. I didn't get it. I got in there towards the end of the bike, but just for the run mainly. But where were we going to start again? Because I thought maybe I would like give a little bit of a something on whatever we're starting at, and then I can let you roll for the rest of the
man.
podcast.
It's your house. I'm just a guest.
It's true. You are in my house.
In your house. I'm just a guest, man.
Go just for hanging out in my house.
Yeah,
no big deal.
Go for it.
Where was the starting point again?
I was going to talk about just the race coverage and the conditions.
Oh, okay. I got nothing on that.
Yeah, you got nothing on that.
No, it's always cool to. I thought it was good coverage. I mean, from the run. I mean, I didn't see much of the bike, and I wish I would have seen the swim. That was I always like to watch their swim coverage. Did they have the cameras with the kayaks out there, like right on the people and stuff? Because that's always for me to watch. Like the lead pack of the swim just blows my mind sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's great. It was the video coverage was pretty good. I'm not gonna say it was great. It was pretty good. I could listen to it on mute. We got to get some new commentators.
Okay, it's just I didn't want to say it, but there was a couple things I heard, and I was like,
a couple things. How about a million things? I'll pay.
Well, you
to
don't
let
want
me come on there and
commentate. You just want to have somebody,
make
we could be
specific.
The Manning
make
brothers.
some serious. Exactly. I'll be paid.
Maybe we'll do that next time.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that. We'll do our stream and we'll commentate. They did. They. I thought Listen, overall, from the professionals to the age group athletes that we knew that were racing, that we coach, they had nothing but great things to say about the venue, about the city itself, about the organization of the race. They had like multiple pre-race swims. You could put a timing chip on and go. So, I mean, it was great. It's an unbelievable venue. It's a gorgeous city. The city absolutely adores Ironman. They have a freaking, monument up. Mm-hmm. The video coverage of the race, the swim was pretty good. The bike was, it was okay. They tended to show the same groups over and over again. I think they could definitely improve on that aspect. The run is pretty much what it is. And I could definitely use some different comment. Get Tim O'Donnell in there. He's great. Tim O'Donnell is like the Peyton Manning of commentating for.
They did a little
he's
interview
great.
with him, right?
He's absolutely fantastic. And just like the most.
I know what I was going to say about. This is the one thing. Who was the woman commentating? Do you remember?
Dee Griesbauer. I think is how you pronounce her last name.
The only thing I remember, and it's not very. It's kind of sad, but she's like Blumenfeld is. Just crushing everybody. She's like, I really hope he starts celebrating about 6 miles out. He deserves to celebrate. And that guy's like, no, he's not going to start celebrating 6 miles from the finish line.
He won't even do it for like 100 meters.
Yeah.
Why? He wasn't even winning with 6 miles to go. He was like mile 21 or 22. He actually came and took the lead. Yeah, it was. And I can't. Miles. Yeah. And Matt Lieto, it's like, oh God, like there's just so much I can handle. Like we need some new blood. The swim was great. I saw a lot of comments in our Facebook group about the swim packs and how they they breathe every stroke. Yeah, they do. Why? Because it's an aerobic event. Like you need oxygen. Like
it's not a breath holding.
Yeah, it's not a breath holding competition at all. And the bike. Listen, the bike course is beautiful. The pros had the best conditions of the day. The wind hadn't picked up. Mm-hmm. It was cool. They started at 6:15. They're done by 2. It's like, and then the latest age group started at 8 o'clock. But overall, I thought I will try not to skip around too much today. But, I think from an organizational standpoint and the race itself and how the city embraced it and the ability to pre-ride the course and feel safe, and the roads are picture perfect for the majority of them. There's plenty of housing, plenty of hotels. Like it's an unbelievable venue, and everyone said, it looks like a different planet when you kind of watch it. So I think it was exciting. The race itself got kind of a lot of flack, with, everyone getting emails like, the 3 months beforehand that was like, hey, you accumulated enough points to be, AWA Rhinestone level from 4 years ago. We'd love to offer you an entry to the Ironman World Championships in 2021. which is it's a business, right? Like, and a lot of people tried to kind of poo-poo the Ironman World Championships, title of the race, but it wasn't. You can say that all you want to, and while it had age groupers in there that wouldn't have qualified for a World Championship in any way, shape, or form, the top end of the age group and the top end of the athletes, the pros that wanted to show up, they wanted to go. And we'll talk about that later in terms of the impact that might have on the future of the sport and where we see the World Championships going. The winners, Blumenfeld. I mean, what do you got to say? What else? What do you say about the guy? He is the current Ironman World Champion. He is the reigning Olympic gold medalist. He is a WTS World Champion, Series World Champion, and he is the owner of the fastest Ironman ever. He's had arguably the best 16 months, 12 months of any triathlete ever to be able to go. He didn't participate. He participated in 70.3 Worlds. That probably would have been like the box to check to make it, without argument, the best season, best 12 months a triathlete's ever had in the history of the sport. He got, I think, a bike mechanical going up one of the climbs and lost his training partner, Gustav Eden, on that day. So you don't know what would have happened. But he is, it was unreal. It was special to watch him execute his day. He swam okay, but he came out kind of in no man's land and had to do a lot of the bike solo because he was stuck in between. He was just off the front pack of guys, and he was too far ahead of the second group and the solid bikers that could eat bikers. So he rode a lot of it. He kind of just found himself in kind of no man's land, forcing himself to kind of bike by himself with really no help for a good portion of the race. And then once he got on the run, he just straight rolled through the competition like they were. He never once to me looked like he was ready to slow down, or that I'm sure he was hurting, but that he never looked to me like he looked totally in control, totally strong. But that sure as hell didn't prevent age groupers across the globe with little to no knowledge of basically anything.
Now that was the first time I had seen him. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And because I don't watch a lot of it, but yeah, I was like, this dude is strong, man.
Strong.
Kind of solid looking, and I was just super impressed with that, man. Because like you're saying, I don't know how that translates into that Kona course like we were talking about with the heat, but it was so hot. I think
different kind of heat, right? It's a quote unquote dry heat.
But still, man, I kind of look at him like, I think he probably handle it all right.
You think? We talked about it. Leading up to it, that it was a strong course, right? It wasn't. It's not built for speed, even though you look at his time and you're like, what? How is this possible, right? The course, the bike course itself, lends itself to being much faster than you would think if you get out there when the pros did, where there was minimal wind, it wasn't super hot, and you can handle your bike, right? We were talking yesterday about some of the descents and the kind of time they were making, how great the road surface is. There are minimal turns compared to a lot of Ironman courses. But I always find it fascinating to hear, because I had a bunch of screenshots sent to me about, from age groupers in different forums commenting about his body type. He had fat rolls, or why is he wearing calf guards? How ridiculous does his bike look? And it's like, that's so unbelievably typical of triathletes in general, to act like they know something. If you need to, go back and rewind the accolades and the accomplishments this guy has won over the last 12 months. He knows what he's doing. His coach knows what he's doing. Do you think, and can we just say this? Shut the fuck up about people's body composition. Like, if you've ever raced, you've gotten your ass beat by someone who weighs more than you and someone who weighs less than you. So can we just stop saying that you have to look a certain way to be a champion or to be really, really good at endurance sports? Like you and I have always talked about this, that I feel that honestly, a lot of athletes spend too much of their trying to look like a stereotypical endurance athlete than worrying about performance. Christian Blumenfeld and his coaches are worried about one thing: performance. And I remember listening to a podcast that his coach did leading up to it was right after he won the Olympic gold medal. and they talked about his race weight, right? Because that's a super popular thing for people to focus on or obsess about, or talk about, oh, well, if he would just lose 20 more pounds, or if he was more aero on his bike, it's like, but they talked about, and they said, well, up to a point, right? Because Tokyo was hot. I mean, it was really, really, really hot. They did a lot of heat testing, and they made a brand new kit for him to race in Tokyo. Everybody was joking and laughing because it was straight white, like you could straight see through it. And then you look at the finish line, and we even talked about it. Like, and he was in a sprint finish with Yi from Great Britain, who probably weighs 60 pounds less than he does. And you would think, a sprint finish on a hot day, you might give it to that guy, and he just blazed through it. And one of the things I found fascinating that I think everyone should kind of listen to and repeat is that up to a point, right? You're worried about your performance, but when you start to lose weight beyond a certain level, your ability and your VO2 max drops. And that was something that they found with him, that he was a compromise. Like, why would you compromise looking good with your shirt off versus, quote unquote, looking better with your shirt off or looking leaner and skinnier to sacrifice your VO2 max? A lot of triathletes would. Right, because they would rather look a certain way than be worried about him. They found with him, he's like, all I want to do is win, baby. Like, all he's focused on is winning. He doesn't give a shit about what he looks like, or frankly, what anybody else says about his, the very interesting bike that he was on. Like, it had no top tube. Okay, it was just, it's a prototype, really interesting. The fork is super wide. It's basically contradicts all things superbike that they've been making. His like Di2 was like taped on with blue tape. It was very Mike Tarrolly-esque. Like, it was very, I looked at his front end and I thought, I think Elise sent me a photo of his front end. I was like, that's kind of seems like something Mike would actually do. Like, it was kind of taped on there, and it looked kind of janky. And then you see him run and in the way he trains, and it's like, who cares? And it just, and yes, it was a strongman course, but then you think about how hot it actually was, and you think about his ability and his performance and his fitness. If he races Kona, he's hands. I think he's the favorite, even though it's hard to go against Frodeno. But
yeah, I wasn't there, man. But like, I'm looking at that course because it turned out to be very fast for the pros.
Yep.
And for a guy like him, I mean, just the nature of it. I think when you have, a lot of long straightaways, a lot of long descents, maybe with not super steep. Well, I guess it had to be pretty steep because they were going. I was telling you, like, for that one split, they averaged 50 miles an hour for like 9 miles. Yeah. I mean, I've topped out at 50 and it freaks the shit out of me, but you're doing it for 9 miles. But I mean, the point, I guess, is even on the run course, it seemed like, at the end, they were like, this is a long downhill. So it's probably a good grade for a guy that's maybe a little heavier. And just in general, those kind of, like for me, because I usually probably race above my, the perfect triathlete weight. And I usually feel really good on those because I think one of my things has always been, I've just been kind of more of a stronger guy than a, lighter endurance athlete type thing. So I always feel really good on, even like here at Chat, I think I do better on the downhills with my quads and stuff like that. So something about the lack of maybe turns and a lot of things like that add up over the course of a race. But man, that was the thing to me that really stood out about some of those speeds they were averaging over those downhills is, they were obviously super confident with their bike handling and all that other kind of stuff. And I think, a lot of age groupers probably weren't as aggressive on those types of hills. And plus, like we were saying, there's probably wind.
The wind picked up tremendously as the day went on.
Yeah, so you just can't have that kind of confidence. But I mean, you're talking about those guys are going like 20 miles an hour average, faster than a lot of most age groupers.
Yeah,
that's kind of wild to think about.
Yeah, and on some of the climbs, they were averaging 10 miles an hour over. Like, I just looked at Blumenfeld's, but he had like a 49 change average on that one descent, and then his that last climb where most age groupers are in like the 8 mile an hour to like 12, he was 18. It's like the time you make up from that descent plus on the uphill is unreal. Yeah. And that obviously
4:15.
I know, dude.
The bike.
There and to think like, and yeah, it could be a lot windier at Kona. The course isn't as isn't as hard, but I think the race will play out a lot differently anyway. But it's a strong course, like a straight speed, light speed. You weren't going to have nearly as an advantage, right? Because you can absorb the impact the stronger you are, and it's just one of those things that a lot of athletes might think, I got to do some more strength training. Well, it's about hills, it's about downhills, it's about big gear work, it's about knowing what when you feel the strongest, right? Versus light and weak, but that doesn't mean performing, right? And you saw it with Danielle Reef. I mean, she's tall, she doesn't look like she's moving that fast, and you look at her splits and you're like, holy crap. Like, and I couldn't be happier for her. And I picked her as a pre-race favorite because I was like a little bit sentimental. She, left her longtime coach, Brett Sutton, and decided to go self-coached, and had a lot of introspection. And I think we even talked about her lengthy interview of, how she kind of developed and came out of it. The pandemic and the isolation. And I was watching a 50-minute interview she did, and it was somewhat, I only watched it because she talked for 49 minutes of it. It was a Bob Babbitt. And she's awesome to listen to. It was really fun to watch how she went, she left, she got her butt whooped at 70.3 Worlds last year. And, Lucy Charles Barkley came in and won. Of course, everybody's like, oh, she's the next big thing. Like, everybody's so prisoner of the moment about most things, especially if they do them once. And she said, she left that race and said, I had to leave and go find myself again, as an athlete, and how to push herself. And then obviously she had a mediocre at best race in Oceanside, which again, everybody thought, she's done. She's self-coaching. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's lost it, writing her off, picking everybody else and their brother, all the newcomers. It was funny during the video, she was like talking about her godson. She was like, yeah, my godson brought me on Zoom one day to his little class. Maybe he's in like elementary school or whatever, introduced her as Danielle Reef. She used to be good at triathlon. And she started laughing. I was like, first of all, how great kids are, but everyone, right? Our memory is so short, right? For so many things, the good, the bad, we just have a super, super short memory of all these things. And I think probably listening to the last 6 months of people telling her she's done, right? She's self-coached. She doesn't know what she's doing. The other athletes have kind of passed her by. She was typical championship level Danielle Reef, which was swim decently close to the second back. And if you go back and watch like all of her wins in Kona, she kind of hangs. She has a low cadence. She's strong. She has, obviously coming from a coach by Brett Sutton, a lot of big gear, lower cadence. She kind of hangs with everybody the first 40 to 50 miles and then lays down the absolute hammer and comes off the bike 10 minutes, right, in front of everybody. And they're kind of thinking, like, because she hadn't been running very well, and she comes off the bike and she kind of has a lumbering, she's taller, she's tall and strong, and she doesn't look like she doesn't have like the run speed and pedigree of like an Ann Hogg or even Kat Matthews. And they were kind of like, they'll probably catch her. She's putting time in both of them and just on total cruise control, and then crosses the finish line. And you could finally see it. She like put her hand up and was like 5, basically announcing to the world, I haven't gone anywhere. And if you think that I'm done, you're wrong. I'll see you in October.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I'm watching her going, this is just complete dominance. And,
complete.
And to think about what that's like to be out there in front for that long, just on your own, just not fading and just staying strong. And I love what you said about like she had to step away and find herself, because I really think that's about so many. I mean, in a microcosm of age groupers, how often does that happen? Mm-hmm. You can have the best plan laid out for you, the best coach in your ear and all that kind of stuff. But if your head's not right, it ain't going to matter, man. You're going to, be crying on workouts and not really, you know what I mean? Like, you have to really be able to find what your why is, what's going on in your head in order to have good training. And obviously that sounds like what she had to do. It was like, she was probably hit one of those years when she just didn't have the zeal for it anymore. And she just didn't have the desire to really kind of like let her body do what it can do. Or, maybe it was just a little deep fatigue that was just not going away, that kind of stuff. And I just think that's so important. But for me, like to see her on that bike and then get out on that run, and they just kept coming back to her, and I'm like, she ain't gonna like. No. You could just see it.
She was cruising,
and that's I mean, we talk about pacing all the time, and you know, everybody talks about being fast and everything, but it's just like what you always say is it's how little you slow down, and how do you get your mind wrapped around and your body in the groove on that marathon where you're just gonna keep cruising and not worry about how damn fast you are all the time. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously she's going faster than any of us are going to go, but just the thought of being able to sink into your pocket, whatever that is, and accept it.
And front running while you do it. And that's like, you know, you brought up such a great point, how hard it is to lead off the bike and lead the whole way. No one's pushing you. You don't really know, you're getting splits, you know how kind of far back, but like, to have that, all right, I've got a 10-minute lead, but I know, you know, there's some good runners behind me, but I also know I just gotta do my thing, right? And not overthink it and just kind of be steady with it. And like you said, it's about how little you slow down. And it was honestly, it was just awesome to watch her. It was utter absolute dominance of how she, and I think everyone on that course with the rolling terrain, how hot it was probably shocked at how well she run. She figured it out. And you also got to think, like, you know, and this is one of those things that pros aren't really concerned with, even though I'm sure it's really kind of difficult to drown out the noise when you, in the social media and the, you know, everyone making comments and forums and all this kind of stuff about you've lost it. She cares about one thing. World Championships, right? So, you know, to train through a race, like, you don't know that she could have gone to Oceanside, was super fatigued and been like, I'm just gonna go out and see how things are working.
Yeah, mess around with some stuff.
And maybe go into with like no taper at all. And then be like, people might have, you know, assume she probably tapered. She probably wants to win. She's thinking this is part of the plan. So to have that kind of patience and confidence that I'm gonna work my internal plan, because especially as a person who's self-coached now, no one else is gonna know it, right? I only care about one thing. So all these people can say what they want to say. They can say I'm done. They can say I'm never going to get back to the top again. But to have the internal patience and confidence to work your own plan and not get distracted and not listen to things. Like she went to, I think it's the Sierra Nevada area to train like 3 weeks leading up to it. She said she likes going there because the terrain is similar. The heat is very similar. It's a dry heat. And she said, but she didn't want to go to St. George because it's so busy. She says, I wanted to be alone. I wanted to be in my own little bubble, do my own things, not be distracted. And you saw that actually from two of the better races. You saw it with Daniela, who basically like secluded and did her own thing. And then you saw it with one of the interviews I watched with Lionel, which was like, he said, I basically lived in a bubble for like 3 months. He's like, I did my own thing. You know, I slept in and did this, that, rode a lot more outside. And so it was great to see her. And honestly, like if you're, you know, I wish her nothing but the best. And a person with that many championships, I mean, it's really unreal. And that's who showed. The people who didn't show, the 24 hours leading up to the race was like, who's next? Who's going to drop? Like, you know, we think we cast it on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then the night before the race, even after the press conference, Gustav Iden dropped out, who was another huge favorite. Brownlee, who I picked to win, one of the favorites, he dropped out. They weren't feeling well. The impact of them not racing was giant. And yeah, I 100% agree. You can only beat who you show up. You know, who shows up. You know, Sebastian Kienle said, you know, the first part of winning a championship is being able to start it. You know, and so you can have people who want to put an asterisk by it. You can put, you know, say that, you know, oh, well, I wonder what, you know, happened if so-and-so would have showed up and so-and-so would have showed up. No one cares. You know, like
they there and they just got sick. What happened?
I think they both, Gustav Iden was sick. He got something from, Blumenfeld was sick, and then he passed it to him, and basically their like team doctors was like, if you do race, you're gonna dig a massive hole. Brownlee was sick. I don't know how sick he was. I'm not him. I can't think it's fair to say how sick someone really was.
Right.
Especially on the professional level when they're not going zone 2, right? They're going like zone 3, zone 4 for 7.5 hours. and he's got the sub 7 attempt in like 4 weeks, which is a big promotional deal. So I'm sure that was in the back of his mind. They just said they weren't feeling well. A lot of athletes, like the 2 weeks before that, said they weren't, and then came back. Like Blumenfeld, he wasn't feeling well. He went down, took a few days off, took things easy, and then came back. But the fire, it was you couldn't see the front of the race, and not think how different this is going to be if everybody shows up. Like, and just from a tactical standpoint, like you think of, Jan wasn't there, the reigning champ, one of the probably the greatest long course athlete of all time on the men's standpoint. Gomez wasn't there. Brownlee wasn't there. Eden wasn't there. Patrick Lang, another 2-time Kona, Ironman, wasn't there. The dynamics of the bike would have been totally different. And I think that's maybe, and I follow the pros extensively and have watched this for a long time. The dynamics of the front of the race in St. George were, they were very, I wouldn't say they're unorganized, because there was a group of 5 who came out of the front, led by kind of Braden Curry, and the guy who ended up getting third. Lionel caught him with like the last quarter mile. If that group looks totally different, they were just kind of, I was shocked that nobody back of guard was up there. And I was kind of shocked that no one decided like, I'm going to make my move and go and really try to drive off the front. If this race is in, and again, because now we're going to kind of go talk about, who wasn't there and the impact that it had. And yes, I totally agree. The first, second, and third are now like, the reigning world champion and runner up and in third place, because you can only beat who shows up. If everybody's on the start line at Kona, things are drastically different. Like you think of Gomez, who's a front pack swimmer. He's not lightning, he's not firepower on the bike, but he'll be up there. Lang and Gomez are the 2 that would have been really interesting to watch with the dynamics of Blumenfeld, because they're the ones that are so tactical and annoying. They will never do pulls. You'll never see them on front. They'll be the ones always riding kind of like the last one on the train, right? If there's a group of 6, they're always in 6. They're doing the least amount of work, because they're like, I don't need to work, because I know I can outrun all of you, so I'm just gonna sit back here and chill. You guys do the work because you need a lead in the gap. If Jan and Brownlee and Gomez they would have all come out of the swim in that top group. They would have not been so complacent as that front group was to just kind of sit in the 5 of them. No one went off the front. You would have seen. I would predict like you would have seen Brownlee and Jan go off the front. They would have ridden together. It'd been like, we know we can run, but we need a gap on the guys behind us, like the
push them.
Yeah, push them. Like Lionel Blumenfeld, who wouldn't have been on there. Maybe even Eden, because he doesn't have the gigantic firepower maybe that Jan does, or Brownlee on the bike. And they would have put in more time. They would have been more aggressive. They just didn't have like the alpha male up there, the champion. That's like, they were just all kind of comfortable to sit, kind of ride their group ride, come off in the front group. It would have been a totally different dynamic. And then within that group, you've got run pedigree, right? You've got Jan, you got Brownlee, Gomez, Lang, who has some of the fastest, Ironman marathons in Kona of all time, 2-time champion. The race would have been drastically different on the men's side had those guys been in the race, because they would have been out of the water at the front, and they would have taken the race more in an aggressive standpoint. And they kind of like, because those 5 guys, no one expected any of them to win. So a lot of people pick Backgaard to maybe be on the podium, even though he's fairly young and experienced. But they were kind of comfortable staying in their group of 5. And I was shocked to see no one kind of go off the front and kind of test the legs and think, I need more time. I need more time than I'm going to get if I just hang with you guys, because the guys behind me are going to catch me. Of course, you don't know how far, depending on how the motos were and how they were giving time splits. And that's my hope for the World Championships in Kona this year, is if Jan shows up, Lang shows up, Blumenfeld, Eden, Brownlee, and Sanders. If all of them show up, you're going to see, I predict, you're going to see multiple Iron Wars going on, because you're going to have guys at the front who can all run within 2 to 3 minutes of each other. And it's going to be so much fun to watch if they all show up healthy. And if they make a start line and get in there, it will be some of the especially if I think Eden's a maybe. I know he's focuses on 70.3 World this year. He's a maybe on doing Kona. You don't know how frustrated he's going to be from this. I think he was supposed to do Ironman California last year again, and that got canceled with all like the flooding into like torrential downpours. You don't know if he's kind of, frustrated with the whole process and not getting to race. If he will show up, Blumenfeld's all in. He's been saying I want to go win, the Ironman, and then he'll go back to I think Olympics. But if all those guys show up, it's gonna be unreal. Plus, St. George itself is the swim wasn't nearly as spread out as you might think. You didn't have the guys in the front drilling it, kind of getting a gap. It was a wetsuit swim, which is a huge advantage to the second pack guys like Kienle, Werf, Sanders, Lang if he was racing. Those guys, if you're in Kona, even if the conditions are perfect, they're not going to get a benefit from a wetsuit because you don't get to wear one, right? So the slower you are of a swimmer, the more impact the wetsuit has for you. So the swim will look different. The gap will probably be larger coming off the front because those guys are going to push it. They're going to push the needle, and because you can't think like getting off the bike, Blumenfeld, Sanders, guys like Matt Hansen, McNamee. They probably looked at Hoffman. You probably look at the front and they're like, I'm not worried, because they know they can run those guys down. If you've got, and they probably knew that, right? Like they probably knew when they were getting splits, Blumenfeld and Sanders. It was fascinating because one of the piece of commentating, like one of the one piece I found that was interesting commentating, they were like, every time Blumenfeld would get a time check, he only asked about one person in the front.
Oh yeah.
He asked about back guard. He's like, "Where's back guard?" He's like, "I'm not worried about anybody else. Where's he?" Because it was almost they weren't even concerned with the guys in the front winning because they knew the group. Now you sprinkle in Gomez or Brownlee or Ferdinand, and you're like, okay, I have to be worried. Like I have to push it. So they changed the whole dynamic of the race. But like I said, you can only race who you race. And so hopefully in Kona this year, we can see a complete top to bottom race and how it plays out, because it all comes out to who's there and the tactics and the strengths.
You bring up an interesting point. So these guys were, sick. And while they could have probably performed and done all right or done something, they just felt like they didn't have what it would take to go. So they weren't, like Michael Jordan in the finals playing with the flu because they wanted to win.
Stop it. Totally different.
All right. I'm just throwing it out there, like I had my best Ironman when I was sick. So
yeah, relative sick. You weren't going for a 7:15.
That's true.
And doing like zone 4 in 90 degree heat.
No, I get it. There's so many other things, elements with these guys. They don't have it's not off season. Like Jordan was like, I got one more game.
Right. And then I'm done. Right. That was another really interesting thing. We'll talk about it probably in the next cast about how wonderful I thought it was to have a different course that was new, right? Brand new. No one knew who was going to do well in certain sections because they'd never done it, right? Yeah. You can pre-ride the course all you want to, but kind of like Kienle said in the lead up, he said the course isn't what makes the race hard. The athletes what make it hard. And kind of going back to who didn't show up, those athletes who didn't show up, weren't able to show up or chose not to show up, they would have made the day a lot different it would have looked a lot differently. Because even like on the top, like one of the last climbs, you saw like Blumenfeld, Sanders, Long come up. Sanders came up the climb. It was like he was in the zone 1 recovery. He wasn't pressing at all, which is so opposite him. And you got to think that if that Jan's up there in their front and you want to win, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna have to push it a little bit more from a tactical standpoint. And I'll have to say, and we'll do. I had a subject called Lessons from Lionel and Trust, and that's where we'll end it for today. And we'll do the part 2 for Thursday. But he got second, and I have to give mad props in one area, the wardrobe change. Coming out of T2, change into the run singlet and run shorts, which I thought was just unreal. It benefited him because I guess he had to take a shit twice. So he was able to actually do that and get back and still run up to second, which is why he changed into it. It benefited in this race. I'll be interested to see if he does it in Kona, because if you lose out on third because you're back 20 seconds and that was your wardrobe change, and how, what's the benefit there? He looked strong and in control. And if you listen to his post race, I don't not like Lionel. I'm just not a giant fanboy of him like a lot of people are. I'm not really a fanboy of anybody, except for you. But in his post race interview, and we've said this a billion times, and every age grouper should take it to heart in long course racing. He said every time, one of his pre-race things, he said, I'm the most worried that I'll make the right decision when it comes time. It wasn't about his fitness. It wasn't about the course. It wasn't about who he was racing. It was about, I hope I make the right decision, because I don't normally make the right decision when I race. He's kind of cavalier when he races. He has always gone, in my opinion, he's always swam way out of his actual ability, and then overbiked because he feels like he has to make up time, and then never been able to show his true run fitness. He kind of adopted I'm the bike man of Ironman, and then kind of took it to heart too much. Right. And then it sacrificed his run. But in his post race, he said, every time I thought about making a decision, I said, is this going to help me at the 7 hour mark? The whole race for me was about the 7 hour mark. It was about, will I be able to race my best at the 7 hour mark? For him, right? For age groupers, it's the one thing we always say, which is the decision I'm going to make right now going to allow me to race and run my best the last 10K or the last half marathon? That's the age groupers version of the 7 hour mark. It was incredibly mature to hear him say that. And listening to him pre-race talk about, I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm finally, trained the right way, which, you can take that. I feel like it's trained properly is what he said, which I think it was kind of a dig at his former coaches, to kind of say, I don't think he's trained any better. I don't think his fitness is any better. I think he has finally found someone that he trusts in his coach. And his coach has been able to get through to him in a way that no one else has. In the past, he's talked extensively about, I don't have a coach, I have an advisor. He's never really accepted I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I need someone to help me. Right. And I need to take the responsibility off myself and just listen to one person no matter what. And he has found that, coincidentally enough, in Gustav Eden's brother, Mikael Eden, who is his coach, it was funny listening to Gustav, who didn't race, in the pre-race interviews. They're like, so, what's your strategy? He was like, well, I can't really say because, my coach is the same coach as Christian, so I can't let him know. And then my brother, I can't tell him because he's Lionel's coach. So really, I just got to tell my mom. He's like, so she's here. Yeah, it's like, it's like, can't really say. And so which is fascinating, the fact that his brother is Lionel's coach, and you kind of see like some kind of like objectivity there. But he has found someone, which is true for every athlete, regardless of experience and regardless of the ability and level that they want to perform at, is if you can find someone you trust as a coach, then you will be able to unlock your best self. And I don't think that he's trained super different. The training, is different. I think he's finally found someone to believe in that says, listen, you're not going to overswim. You're not going to overbike. You can run with the best for the most part. And he can't run with Christian or probably Jan or probably even Eden, but he's close, and just said, you don't need to come off the bike in first, but you can run your way to maybe first or second. And so for him to finally come around after years and years of basically getting in his own way, just to shows you that no matter how old you get and how stubborn you are, if you just find a way to trust and have like the patience to be successful, then because frankly, your best day and your best performance is rarely ever because of how fit you are. It's about how well you executed. And his problem has always been execution. And so to watch him come from the end and work his own plan and stay patient enough, it was really actually really awesome to watch him as a professional who's, again, gotten in his own way more than not, finally trust a process and a plan that he didn't make himself. And that's how you unlock your potential, is to get out of your own way. And so I thought that lesson, and to hear his comment about the the 7 hour mark, you know, is this going to hurt me? Is this going to hurt me? Is this going to hurt me? I thought was such a great thing for, again, every age group athlete to listen to. You know, I do have to say, I wish people would quit saying he digs deeper than anybody else.
Oh my God, they said that a zillion times.
Will you just shut up? Seriously, shut. You don't know how deep people dig.
This is right how he wants it.
He digs deeper than anybody. No, he doesn't. Like, did you see Blumenfeld? He had to go to med tent. Like, to say he wasn't pushing as hard or harder it's frankly just disrespectful. And it's ridiculous to say he doesn't push as hard. He pushes harder than anybody no matter what. No, his face looks like he does, right? Because that's his grimace.
Right.
He digs deep and he goes to pain cave just like all the other athletes that want to win. He just doesn't have, you know, the social media following that a lot of the other athletes have. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he can dig deep, but did you see Blumenfeld? He came across, yelled, and then had to be basically carted off the front of the finish line. But Lionel didn't. So I wonder who dug deeper. As if anyone cares. It's
interesting when you talk about the coaching relationships they have and how connected they are and how close they are and how, these guys are pro triathletes, so they know their shit. You know what I mean? It's not like there's many secrets out there.
Right, yeah,
and you
exactly.
talk about what's my pre-race strategy, I can't share it. And how different that kind of could be from an age grouper, you know, like if you're racing a friend or whatever. The difference in strategy levels is got to be very interesting. And as you're saying, that 7 hour mark that Lionel identified with, and maybe kind of that connect, maybe that was something as simple as his coach reframed it or something, where it used to be that last 8 miles, you got to be whatever. And then he kind of gave him the 7 hour mark. He's like, oh yeah, 7 hours. That makes, because that feels like real pro-y or whatever. But I do think that what you said about trusting your coach is very interesting because, I think a lot of times, and I've said this before, there's so much information out there, so there's really no secrets, but it always comes down to, and this is what I'm always trying to do, is figure out ways to connect and articulate so that it really is taken to heart. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people generally kind of know the philosophy and the anatomy of how to race an Ironman in theory, but how do you work on that throughout the training? How do you really make that sink into your body and in your mind? So it's like second nature almost, and things like that are very interesting. So I would be curious to, really even hear what those three different people's strategy or game plan was. It was so different than the other guy, Yeah,
it's probably very, very similar. And I think they were probably saying that close to the vest because they know each other so well,
right.
And I watched it in their pre-race.
Well, they just throw out lies, just
like we said, when Blumenfeld won the Olympics, he'd be like, you know what I do? I train my ass off 4 days a week and take 3 days off. Everybody be going up. The amount of emails I got after the Olympic speed skater was like, hey, I train 5 days a week and take Saturday. I feel like there's some legitimacy to that. I'm like, you just want more days off. That's not, and again, there was a pre-race video I was watching of him talking about how he saw something that, because Blumenfeld and Eden both have a different coach than he does, and they saw the workouts they were doing one day, and he was like, I really wanted to run for an hour and a half off the bike because I saw the Christian run an hour and a half off the bike, on Strava, or Eden did, and his coach was like, we're doing 20. And it's really, and we mentioned this on the Lessons from Ironman Texas podcast. It's so interesting to watch and hear and observe age group athletes see more and always equate it to better instead of, oh, look, they're doing too much. That's slowing them down and hurting them. Everyone sees it as they're getting better and faster, right? Because we just equate more with better, when for most athletes that are consistent, right, and do plenty of work, more isn't always better, right? Sometimes less is more. It's about minimal effective dose. It's about what you need, not 3 extra, right? And that's just very, very, very. So again, to see him from a guy who's not like that, I think part of it's his addictive personality. To finally have a mentee or an advocate, he's basically just getting out of his own way, which he's never done before. I'm afraid it's probably too late for him to win a world championships. I've always said he'll never win a world championship because he's always gotten in his way. Now he probably has the ability to do it. I just think unfortunately for him, might be too late because you've got Eden and Blumenfeld now. Brownlee still, Ferdinand's still there. Like, he still got, so he would have to have like the race of his life to do it. But it's still,
was that like his best race, you think?
He was second in Kona 5 years ago, I think, or maybe 4 and 18, 17 or 18, he was second. And then obviously, as premature Lionel used to be, he immediately changed coaches right after he got his best day ever in Kona. He was like, "Yeah, I think I'll switch coaches," and fired, I think, Tillsbury Davis. But anyway, it's fascinating. A whole lot of things to take into account. We'll cover the rest from more of like the age group category and where we kind of see the World Championships going forward on next Thursday. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Thanks for supporting us. If you want to know more about all the things we do, including coaching, you can go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you're looking for a coach to help guide you for the rest of the year, click on our coaching tab and check out our roster of coaches. If you're going to be coming to Chattanooga 70.3, come see us. Come say hi. We'll have a booth at the expo. We'll be there Friday and Saturday. Come get some swag. We got some new gear that's not on the website. That'll be revealed on Friday at the expo. That'll be for sale. So come see us and support us and the podcast that way, and get some cool attire in the for you. And then as always, if you need anything from Mike specifically, you can get a hold of him, CrushingIron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me specifically, I'm at C26Coach@gmail.com.
All right, man. I'll see you on Thursday.
See you, dude.